Student is in police custody. We'll hear exactly what happened that had parents concerned and worried. And how will municipalities like Gatineau enforce Quebec's new law banning face coverings? Well, a student from Glebe Collegiate is in police custody after an incident this afternoon that prompted a lockdown at the high school. Ottawa police say they found a handgun near the school. They've arrested a minor, but no charges have been laid. Police now say no one at the school was in any danger. But as Julie Ireton reports, students and parents spent the day frightened and concerned.
Grace? Hi. Yeah, we're just in front of the school.
As parents heard about the lockdown at Glebe Collegiate, many of them, including Genevieve Spicer, rushed to the school to pick up their kids.
Grace, I'm happy to see you. It's okay, I'm alive.
They called a lockdown, so we all huddled in the back of the classroom. There were a lot of rumors saying, this is what happened, or that's what happened, this is who did it.
While students and staff were hidden inside the school, unaware of why there was a lockdown, Ottawa police were tracking the leads, both inside and outside the high school. Police say they were initially called after a bullet was found on school property.
Just a few minutes ago, one of our officers found and located a firearm with some ammunition. So that'll form part of the investigation, and we'll be seizing that. There have been no injuries, no threats again, and the school has been, we are completed our searches of the school.
By early afternoon, police did report the arrest of a minor. No charges have been laid.
It concerns me considerably because we haven't had any big issues with guns in the Glebe. The Glebe's really a kind of sleepy neighborhood, so it's quite concerning.
And the students say they're concerned they were not told more about what was going on when the school was under lockdown. They say they scoured the internet for information.
With social media, a lot of people were interacting with each other to find out what was going on.
I mean, honestly, the most worrying thing about the whole thing was that we weren't told anything and our teachers knew nothing.
And we had to find out through a social media platform, which could have been really unreliable. So I think we're all a bit shaken up, so just be nice to head home.
Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
A bill to promote religious neutrality in Quebec could create challenges for municipalities, including Gatineau. Bill 62 passed yesterday in Quebec's National Assembly. It bans face coverings for those who deliver and receive provincial and municipal services. As Stu Mills reports now, there's both concern and confusion about its impact. Stu joins us now. Stu, just remind us what Bill 62 calls for.
It's a brand new law, Luce, the only one of its kind in Canada. And it effectively would force Muslim women who wear a burqa or a niqab to uncover their faces if they're using public services. The law prohibits public workers, including doctors, teachers, daycare workers, as well as those people who might be receiving services from the government, from covering their faces. Now, it was also extended to municipal services, including public transit, in an amendment made to the legislation just last August. In Gatineau, though, there is some resistance to the bill, and there's a lot of confusion. Will women have to uncover their faces to walk through a city park? What does it mean for students who go to school in Gatineau or to a CEGEP? Gatineau's mayor, Maxime Pedneau-Jobin, says he's the mayor, he himself has hundreds of questions about how this law will work.
Pour nous, c'est comme à côté du vrai problème.
This week, he said, Bill 62 is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Even Gatineau's bus company, they're now wondering if drivers will have to prevent women in niqabs from boarding.
Nous ne sommes pas en mesure de donner de directives claires à notre personnel. Donc, évidemment, pour le moment, pour nous, ça demeure le statu quo. Il n'y a rien qui change.
There you have Céline Gauthier saying they don't know what to tell their employees. There's so much muddiness around this legislation. So for now, it's the status quo. Now, Natasha Bacht is a professor of law at the University of Ottawa. She specializes in religious freedom and women's issues. She says the law is just not constitutional.
I'm really disappointed. I'm really upset. I think it's essentially the Quebec government has legislated a license to discriminate against Muslim women who cover their faces.
We've heard that it might be possible for women to apply for an exemption in some situations, and yet we don't know anything yet about how that exemption might work. Professor Bacht raises the question, what happens if a woman wearing a niqab goes to the Hull Hospital?
Is it really going to be a nurse who says, look, I need you to remove your veil, or is she going to concentrate on the healthcare issue? So we don't know what the mechanics of that exemption will be. I assume it's going to be the frontline workers who work in the public service who will have to deal with these kinds of accommodations. But it's a very messy way of handling this situation.
So again, there are some guidelines coming for people who work in the public sector or who get services from people in the public sector. That's all of us. But they're not going to be ready until next summer. So confusion reigns, I think.
So, Stu, what about someone who wants to board a bus wearing a scarf that's covering their face? What happens then?
Basically, the way the bill stands now, according to the way the Justice Minister has taken that question, you'll have to take that off, no matter what kind of a face covering it is. If the law stands the way it was unveiled on Wednesday, you'll have to take that scarf off if you want to get on the bus. But again, there's a lot of clarity still to come, we hope.
Okay, thanks for that, Stu. And whether or not the bus driver is the one enforcing that will remains to be seen. We'll keep watching it. Thanks, Stu.
You're welcome.
Well, bargain hunters are hitting Sears stores today. The Canadian retailer has begun its liquidation sales as it prepares to close for good after 65 years. This was the scene this morning at the Carlingwood location. All those people lining up there. They lined up to get a head start on the deals. Sears says customers can expect deep discounts of up to 50% off. But as we found out today, some customers weren't that impressed with the prices.
I think for a store that's closing in January, I think the sale should be quite a bit better.
You get 20% off any day. I was expecting signs of 50% off today. Real clearance.
Oh yeah, I thought they brought in from other stores and they've upped the price to put it on sale.
The sales right now, I wouldn't say are the best. Maybe wait a few days or a week or so. There's some good finds in there though.
It's better last week. 40% last week, now it's 20%.
The company's liquidation sales are expected to last between 10 to 14 weeks. Still with Sears now, the retailer has stopped honoring its extended warranties, leaving many Canadians out hundreds of dollars. The CBC's Jacqueline Hansen takes a look at whether extended warranties are ever worth the extra money.
For shoppers eager to get the first pick of Sears liquidation sales,
I just happen to be looking for a new dishwasher, so I figured this is a good chance to get a deal on one.
no extended warranties isn't a problem.
No, I never buy extended warranties.
Usually, neither does Karen Dwyer, but when she replaced all her appliances at Sears last year, she did buy them because she says the retailer offered her a deal. If she bought a 3-year extended warranty and didn't use it, she would get her money back on a gift card. Now that the company is closing, the warranty is gone and the deal is off.
I'm sort of bitter towards Sears.
Dwyer spent nearly $6,000 on her fridge, dishwasher, and stove, and nearly $800 on the extended warranties.
$800 is a lot of money.
Extended warranties generally aren't based on the likelihood of the products failing. Research shows they're typically based on the product price, about 10 to 20% of it.
So a $300 warranty on a $1,500 television, that's 20% of the initial product price that you're paying to get that warranty.
This personal finance expert says in most cases, that extra coverage isn't necessary.
Well, what many Canadians don't realize is that many credit cards offer a buyer protection plan, which acts as an extended warranty. So after your manufacturer warranty is ended, many of these plans kick in to give you an additional 1, maybe 2 years of protection. So call up your credit insurer, see if you're protected.
So some Sears warranty holders could still have other options, even as the pricey coverage they paid for disappears along with the company. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Ian Black is with us now with a pretty spectacular forecast. Ian, good looking couple of days. Huh?
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than this time of year. And this is on the heels of a bunch of days so far this autumn that have been just golden. So, yeah, good news forecast. 2 thumbs up. Green light special, folks. Look at the skies clearing out. Still have that breeze out there. It won't be as windy tomorrow, and as you move through the evening hours, these winds will begin to drop off a little bit. Down to 17, came very close to 20 again today. Keeping in mind a normal high this time of year is 12. 12. So we'll take it. Nothing showing up on the radar if you're heading out this evening. Just grab your jacket. You can leave the umbrellas behind. There's the clouds that moved through here this afternoon. Look at the loop here. That indicates there's a little dome of some warm air back here. Sure enough, that shows up. Bit of a warm front working out of the Midwest. You know, look at Regina, gets into the low 20s today. That's where we'll be for the weekend. So milder air coming in. I think we'll be in this ballpark tomorrow, somewhere around 18 degrees. Bright, nowhere near as windy as it was today. Generally clearing skies overnight. Tomorrow, bright. I don't think as windy. You see these isobars aren't as close together, these lines of equal pressure. And listen, wall-to-wall sunshine tomorrow. That's a real keeper of a day. And we're going to take that great-looking day and just sort of extend it into the weekend and even warm things up a little bit. 6 degrees with clearing skies. Tomorrow's high, somewhere around 17, 18 degrees. You'll notice a breeze maybe out of the west, 15, 20 kilometers per hour at times, so nowhere near as windy. Take a look at this. Yeah, there's your weekend, folks. Here's my advice. Get outside. Enjoy it. Mild still on Monday, but a chance of showers. Look what happens after that. Yeah, those temperatures start dropping back to reality. Early indications are as we round out the month of October, it's going to be pretty chilly. That would include Halloween, too. We'll talk about your weekend in detail with the photos coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by the Phantom of the Opera, coming to the National Arts Centre October 18th to 29th.
At Basil Barutsky's trial today, testimony centered on Anastasia Cusick, one of the 3 victims. Court heard from her sister, who was with her when she was killed, and from 2 other witnesses. Barutsky actually participated today, having his court-appointed lawyers ask questions. The trial is not sitting tomorrow and resumes at the Ottawa courthouse on Monday. 60-year-old Barutsky is charged with the first-degree murder of 3 Ottawa Valley women 2 years ago. 2 people in an eastbound car were sent to hospital shortly after midnight when a wheel from a westbound vehicle smashed into theirs. One of the people was listed in life-threatening condition following the incident on Highway 174 near the Blair Road exit. Well, Somali Canadians are among the many reeling from the shock of an explosion that rocked Somalia's capital city, Mogadishu, this past Saturday. Called the deadliest single attack in Somalia's history. A truck bomb left 300 dead and another 400 people injured. The explosion appeared to target the Safari Hotel on a busy road in Hodan district. Security forces had been trailing the truck after it raised suspicions. The attack has been blamed on the al-Qaeda-linked Islamic group Al-Shabaab. This is considered one of the most lethal terrorist operations anywhere in the world in recent years. And Ottawa, of course, is home to a large Somali Canadian community, many with friends and family still in Mogadishu. And tonight they've gathered on Parliament Hill for a vigil. That's where we find Omar Dabagi-Pacheco. Omar, just describe what's happening there now.
Yeah, Lucy, the vigil is just wrapping up here, but you know, you can see behind me here, people still supporting each other, hugging each other. So many stories to come out of here today. I was speaking to one mother who had a very young daughter, and she was telling me just how difficult it is to see all the scenes coming out of Mogadishu and having to explain that to her daughter. You know, they live here now, but they still have family and friends and connections back there where all this chaos happened. You just saw those images there, devastating images from there, and she's having to explain to her daughter why this is happening, you know. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people came out here today. You would have seen here about, you know, half an hour ago, more than 100 people. The minister, Ahmed Hussein, came out. He's of course of Somali descent. He came out, spoke to the crowd. We heard from one man who had lost a brother, you know, and just basically the stories that were coming out of here and people trying to support each other, hoping to shed more light on what's happening out there. You know, relative to other terrorist attacks, there has not been as much of a spotlight on this attack. I heard a lot of people tell me that, and they're really hoping to raise awareness about what happened and to raise funds for the people who are still suffering back home, still trying to rebuild that. One lady told me she felt like it was a giant step backward, that the country had really gone so far forward and that it felt like a step backward to have this happen. And it's been 5 days, but I mean, the shock is still there for a lot of people. So I want to introduce you to one of the vigil organizers who I'm standing with right now. Dahabo Ahmed Omer, thanks so much for being here. You helped organize this vigil. Tell me about that. How did it come together?
It came together with 5 young women from the University of Ottawa and Carleton University that felt that it was their duty to create awareness and to really talk about what's been happening in Somalia, and to bring people together to just heal and mourn over the tragic death of over 300 Somalis back home.
There's a very large Somali Canadian population here in Ottawa, particularly. What stories are you hearing from them? What are they feeling?
People are feeling, there's a little bit of despair, there's a little bit of disheartenment from the government and from the media coverage internationally. They were hoping that there'd be more coverage on what's been going on, knowing that there are over 300 people that died, and there are over 100 that have been already buried, over 120 that have been buried unidentified. There are still bodies that they're digging up as we speak, and the world needs to hear about this. The world needs to stand up for Somalia.
And you were telling me something earlier that, particularly in Somali culture, there's a ritual to the burial process, and that's not being followed. Tell me about that.
When a Muslim dies, what we are supposed to do is bury them as soon as possible, and that's to allow for the peaceful process of after death to start, and for individuals to be buried days later, for individuals' bodies to be dismembered, for people not being able to give their family members a proper burial. It's so heartbreaking and it's so sad, and individuals back home are trying their best. People are rallying together, but it's difficult for them. Resources are very limited. Forensic capabilities are very, very low, and I think that it's for the communities internationally to stand for them, and for the government to really try to do what they can to provide aid and support.
What did it mean to you to have the minister out here speaking with you guys today?
It was lovely to see him. It was my first time meeting him, and I think that he's the face of Somalia. He's the first Somali minister, and we look to him to guide us and to stand for Somalia when these type of instances happen. So when I heard that he was sponsoring this event and that he was coming, it was really nice to know that, and it felt that we were getting the support that we needed here in Ottawa.
And you guys are also trying to raise money for people back home. Tell me about that.
Yes, there are multiple faith leaders from Ottawa and a lot of community members such as myself that are gathering together, that have been not sleeping for the last 3 nights, getting the event together, doing the designs of tickets and posters and trying to sell them and bringing them to every business and every school. It's happening this Sunday, the 22nd. It's going to be at the Jim Durrell Recreational Center at 2 o'clock. And we're hoping for people to come out and show support. And we want to fundraise. And ultimately what we want is the government to match our funds.
And we only have a few more seconds left, but I want to ask you about the red band you're wearing. I saw a lot of people wearing that red band. What's that for?
This is a representation of the youth in Somalia. They're all wearing it, and it's just to show their solidarity for each other. And we are miles away across an ocean, but we're standing with you.
Tahabo Ahmed Omar, thank you so much for being with us, and good luck as you continue with your fundraising efforts. Tahamo Ahmed Omar is the vigil organizer today. So as you can see, this will go on for a few more days in terms of fundraising and trying to raise awareness. But today, these are some of the stories that that came out of here.
Okay, Omar, thanks for that. All right, coming up after the break, talking trash with our municipal affairs analyst. We'll talk about Ottawa's less than stellar performance when it comes to recycling organics. And later, the widening controversy over sexual assault allegations in the entertainment industry touches Quebec and its world-famous comedy festival. there was some good news this week for the people in Stittsville who live near the Shea Road Woods. The agreement to buy the area has been signed but not signed off on by City Council. That didn't stop the mayor, though, from announcing it at a photo op. Also, what would it take to get more people in this city composting and using their green bins? Joanne Chianello is our municipal affairs analyst, and she joins us now. Hello, Joanne.
Hello, hello.
First to Stittsville. Now, this whole Shea Woods deal sounds pretty good, but not to the people who may be losing their park as a result.
Yeah,
Explain that.
we haven't heard from that. So what's happened, this is a long-term plan going back to 2009. The city has wanted to buy these woods. It's thought of as a natural urban feature. It's in the sort of Fernbank development lands. People in the West End will know that well. And it's 5 hectares, that's the metric way. It's 5 hectares of woodland area. So here's the deal that the city has. They've always wanted to buy it. They do save up money to buy these kinds of things. But the developer out there always has to put aside land for a park, a community park. And what they're doing is they're taking land that was going to be a park and sort of transferring that requirement to the woods. So the development in Stittsville is going to lose their little community park with swings or whatever, and more houses are going there. But they're going to get to keep the Shea Woods. On top of that, it doesn't cover the entire 5 hectares, and so the city is going to spend $1.65 million to buy the remaining part of the woods. So all of it will be city property.
Okay, a little bit of bait and switch, though. I would imagine that the people who bought houses near the park, that is no longer going to be the park, not happy with this. That can be for another day. But the mayor and Shad Kadri on hand the other day for a photo op to announce this deal.
Yeah, first it was going to be Monday, and then it was transferred to Tuesday. They had a nice little photo op. I did not go to it. I was at the Environment Committee meeting, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Announcing it, great. The mayor tweeted, "We're announcing that the city is buying the Shea Woods. Shea Woods."
Yeah.
That was great. Except the weird thing was, I'm thinking, hey, doesn't this go to planning committee next week? You're spending $1.65 million of city money. Council has to actually approve both the swap, that land swap, and the spending of this money. Now the mayor, we had a discussion about it on Twitter.
On Twitter, and you can follow that. Go to Joanne's Twitter for the little.
He said
back and
no.
forth.
He did mention this as well, but still, I mean, I don't think it's a very controversial deal. I'm pretty sure the council would probably approve this anyway. But still, if it was, you can imagine, like, there's already a little political pressure. Oh, the mayor has already announced this. I guess we're approving it. And it was funny that somebody privately described the event to me as the Shad Kadri re-election campaign launch. So the games that council plays.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So moving on to the Environment Committee, and who doesn't love to talk about compost, Joanne?
Actually,
I know we do.
Everyone does, actually.
It's true.
It's very popular.
Yeah, but as a city, we are very low on how we divert our waste. So set this issue up for us.
So, you'll remember that a little while ago, a few weeks ago, we had Waste Watch Ottawa came out with a report saying that Ottawa has one of the worst waste diversion rates in all of Ontario. In fact, for 2016, it was only 44%, or thought of another way is that we send 56% of our garbage to the landfill. Kind of dismal, to be honest. But the way the cities run now is there aren't regular reports to council, and so this week the Environment Committee had really what was its first in-depth discussion about garbage and recycling in this term of council. Really, they were shamed into it, really, by this Waste Watch Ottawa report. So what did we hear? Well, we heard that the city spends this year, for example, it's spending $350,000 on outreach, education, trying to get people to use their recycling. We're not bad at black and green bin box, but only half of us use the green bin. About 51% of houses have their green bin out. We only send 71 tons of compost, that's all those kitchen scraps, to the Orga World site where it's processed. That's a problem. We pay for 80 million tons, which means we're literally throwing out $1 million of taxpayer money every year. And there's a real question, like, how can we get more people? I mean, we keep talking about education, but I don't know. I've had education up the yin-yang now. Like, we have been talking about education for 10 years, and at some point,
we need to do something else.
You have to do something else.
So we have about 20 seconds left, Joanne. What is the likelihood that something else, some other solution can be found, that a renegotiation of the deal with Orga World can actually happen?
I think that we are going to see that in the new year. Right now, what staff tell me is that they have a really good relationship with the current management of Orga World. They're looking at talking about solutions, is what they said. Well, what can those solutions be? Really only one thing, and that's adding plastic to the green bins. So that's that yuck factor, which people talked about. People can go over that. But the problem is, staff will need some direction from council to say, yes, please talk about renegotiating that Orga World contract. They're waiting for some legal trouble to finally be finished and sorted out. So I think in the new year, we're going to see staff coming to council and saying, we have a new strategy for recycling. And one of the things we'd like to do is try to talk about what it's going to cost to allow plastic bags in the green bin.
Okay, and I'm still waiting for a solution to maggots in the green bin.
Well, the maggots will be in the plastic bags, and you won't have to see them.
Perfect.
There you go.
Thanks, Joanne. It's a great idea. The city is still investigating 9 businesses for breaking Ottawa's hookah ban. Council banned smoking the water pipe in commercial establishments and other public places last year. The manager of bylaw services says he expected more businesses to be following the rules by now. There are 70 charges pending against alleged violators. Several of those are awaiting court dates. Allegations of sexual assault and harassment in the entertainment business now include the head of Canada's most established comedy festival. Up next, the founder of the Just for Laughs Fest is the latest to step down amid swirling accusations.
I'm Dan Seguin. Coming up in sports, perfect on the road, the Senators look for their first home ice win tonight against New Jersey.
Sometimes we try to make the prettier play at home to impress the fans maybe, but we need to start to slowly get back into the finding loose pucks at the net and gritty goals.
Forecast is glorious. Glorious. Plan on getting outside, take it to the bank. We've got a little taste of spring in fall. Coming up, the details.
Just for Laughs, one of Montreal's biggest festivals, is losing its founder and president, Gilbert Rozon, amid allegations of sexual misconduct. Kate McKinnon has that story.
Gilbert Rozon says he'll be stepping down from his jobs. Those jobs include president of the Just for Laughs group, commissioner for the 375th Montreal celebrations, and vice president of the Montreal Metropolitan Board of Trade. His announcement came 3 hours after Quebec comedian Guillaume Wagner posted on Facebook about allegations about sexual misconduct by Quebec host and producer Eric Salvaille. In his post, Wagner wrote that Rozon was next and that he was an abuser. Rozon didn't admit to any wrongdoing, but in a statement he shared on Facebook, he says he was sincerely sorry to anyone he might have offended. Mayor Denis Coderre has reacted to the news, saying he's dismayed and disappointed, and that he has zero tolerance for sexual assault. As well, yesterday night, sources told Radio-Canada Montreal police are investigating Rozon for an incident that happened in Paris in 1994. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Montreal.
After days of accusations that his job gave him an unfair advantage in his personal wealth management, Finance Minister Bill Morneau is making changes. Morneau insists he broke no rules and followed the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner from the start. But today he called her to say he's choosing to put more distance between his role in Ottawa here and his personal portfolio and family business.
I told her that I would like to, even though it wasn't part of her recommendations, move forward and put my assets in a blind trust, to divest all of my and my family's assets in Morneau-Chapelle. While that process happens, and I started it this morning, there will remain in place a conflict of interest screen to make sure that in that process, I'm completely free of conflicts.
Morneau says he was naive to believe that the Ethics Commissioner's recommendations would be enough to meet the high expectations of Canadians. He says he's willing to make the change in order to focus on the job of improving the nation's finances and the lives of Canadians. All right, Ian, we are really enjoying this beautiful hiatus when it comes to weather. It's not going to last forever, so enjoy the weekend, I guess, is the message.
Yeah, that's really good advice. The next 3 days are just going to be delightful, which means, yeah, it's going to come to an end. So last, bike ride of the season with, comfortable temperatures, that kind of thing. Go for a hike, check out the colors. Beautiful stuff on tap. Saw the cloudy periods going by along or just ahead of a cold front, but this cold front's only going to knock a couple of degrees off our high temperature for tomorrow. Clearing skies overnight. This is a bright start to your day tomorrow. You'll notice a westerly breeze, not as windy as it was today, maybe 10 to 20 kilometers per hour, nothing but sunshine. This is now moving into Saturday, which looks bright. You might get a few clouds from time to time, but we can call that a mix of sun and cloud. Take a look at this big chunk of warm air. That is ours to enjoy. It's all moving this way. So while tomorrow I'm thinking maybe 17, 18, you're probably low 20s by the time the weekend rolls around. Still breezy out there. The winds die down a little bit, but you'll still notice a breeze overnight. And tomorrow, not quite as windy, maybe a westerly direction, west-southwest, maybe 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. Lots of sunshine. That is a beautiful day on tap for tomorrow without the wind that we had today, and temperatures which continue to be well above normal. Normal average would be about 12 this time of year, and we're getting up to about 17 or 18. There's your weekend. Mix of sun and cloud both days, low 20s. Not bad, right? Monday, still mild. Chance of a shower. Some showers likely Tuesday, still relatively mild, and then back to reality. I think it's even cooler than that towards the end of next week. Well, the colors are changing, or close to peak in some spots. Thanks to Sean for this beautiful shot while he was hiking up in the Gatineaus. That's Meecher Lake, I believe. And believe it or not, these roses are in full bloom. That's at Rideau Hall. There's their Instagram account if you want to check out other pictures. At Rideau Hall, just a beautiful, the leaves changing in the background and the roses are blooming. Ian.Black at cbc.ca.
Thanks, Ian. The governor of hurricane-ravaged Puerto Rico exercised some polished diplomacy in a meeting with President Donald Trump today at the White House. Trump himself held nothing back in praising his own administration's help.
I give ourselves a 10. We were actually there before the storm hit.
The response is there. Do we need to do a lot more? Of course we do.
Trump has in the past blamed the work ethic of Puerto Ricans and the island government for financial mismanagement in the aftermath of the destruction. In today's meeting, he conceded many locals were unable to help themselves because of the extent of the devastation. A U.S. federal financial assistance package is being worked out. Trump says it will have to be paid back. 1 month after the hurricane, at least 35% of homes in Puerto Rico are still without clean drinking water. 80% are without electricity. A new exhibit at the Canadian War Museum is showcasing some of the beauty that can be found in our dark history. Lieutenant Colonel George Stephen Cantley put pressed flowers hand-picked from the trenches inside letters to his 1-year-old daughter Celia during the First World War. Those letters are now part of the War Flowers exhibit. A Quebec perfume expert was also commissioned to help create a series of scents for the multi-sensory exhibition.
Sometimes when we see historical archive, we can feel a bit disconnected with the past. So for me, the scents have this power to really it connects to your emotion instantly when you feel a sense. So it was a way to really feel the narrative of the exhibition.
The installation will be on display in Ottawa until January the 7th, and it heads to the Visitor Centre at the Vimy Memorial in France next spring. When we come back, is there anything Alan Doyle can't do? My conversation with the actor and lead singer of Great Big Sea about his latest venture, writing a second book. Alan Doyle is best known as the former lead singer for the iconic Newfoundland band Great Big Sea. These days, while pursuing a solo career, Doyle has also found the time to write his second book. It's called A Newfoundlander in Canada, Always Going Somewhere, Always Coming Home. And it's a very funny memoir and retrospective of touring across Canada. Earlier today, I had a chance to meet up with Alan Doyle. Here's our conversation. Hey, Alan Doyle, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. Thank you very much.
You know, let's start maybe with the story that we're all thinking about today, yesterday, and the death of Gord Downey. What are you thinking about today?
Well, it's just sad, isn't it? 'Cause like I said yesterday a couple of times, it's like a punch in the guts that we all knew was coming. but that still didn't make it hurt less when it finally showed up. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big deal for most Canadians because I felt like it was our kind of poet laureate or something, and then, but I think for the bands, especially that we knew the guys who Gord backstage and how nice they were to all the bands always growing up, and they always were eager to take a Canadian band on the road with them in the U.S., or to take a Canadian band overseas with them, and so they always treated us like we were on the same team, even though we're nowhere near their level. They always treated us like they were, and the thing I liked the most about was that when the Hip and Gord got internationally successful, they didn't they didn't change the way they were. They didn't wear different jackets, they didn't stop talking about hockey games and snowstorms and start talking about surfboards and cars from Chicago or something.
Yeah.
They remained Canadian and true to their own backyard, and it was kind of a big musical and lesson for the rest of us, I think.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like you and Great Big Sea have really taken that lesson to heart because you're known for staying true to your roots as well. Really shines through in the book. Let's talk about this. It's the second memoir in 3 years. How did this take shape?
Well, I wanted to do a follow-up one to the first one, primarily because I found writing a book ends up being quite an excellent companion to a traveling musician's life, It's a great way to fill the hours after you wake up, before sound check and after sound check, and so those days and hours on the road, and there's lots of them, aren't kind of just wasted, and they're not, where you end up sitting in a hotel room feeling lonely and guilty and that kind of thing. So I enjoyed having something to do on airplanes, and that kind of thing. So a very practical reason why I wanted to write another book. And then since it was like Canada 150 and all that kind of stuff, I thought it might be interesting if people heard about how I discovered Canada for the first time, right? And that was, out the window of a band van, starting on the very, 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 very edge of it and going all the way across. And so I just thought it was an interesting lens for people to see.
Yeah. And obviously a lot more stories that you had to tell us, because I laughed out loud a number of times in here. You really have a voice. I mean, the Newfoundland voice, your voice comes through loud and clear. But you mentioned Canada 150, so I want to go back to Canada 130. Yeah. And this was 1997. Yeah. This was one of the big gigs in your career at that point. You're going to play Canada Day, Parliament Hill, in front of the Queen. But it turns out you had to set a few people straight on a few things first. Tell us that story.
Well, it was just, to make a long story short, when we arrived in at Parliament Hill, the kind of introductions that they had written for us, we were kind of like old school kind of Newfie jokes, and they were going to pull us out on a dory with sou'westers on and the like. And we kind of felt like it was in a bit poor taste, and we were really young too, and it was like, it was a pretty big gig for us to get, and we were so reluctant, or at least I was so reluctant to have that fight at all. And I'm so glad we did. We stuck to our guns and said, we're just not comfortable doing it this way. And I'm so glad that was really the start of us sort of realizing that, for better or for worse, we sort of became the ambassadors for Newfoundland and Labrador, and we had to kind of be a bit careful and responsible about how we were presenting Newfoundland and Labrador, for better or for worse.
Right. And you really described how out of your comfort zone you were, sort of being a bad guy, because you want everybody to love.
I hated it. I wanted to show up there on that gig, and for the next day when it was over, for all the people who were organizing the concert to go, those are the best guys in the whole thing. They're the real team players. Those guys will suck it up and do whatever. That's that kind of, that's the way I am with everything else. But on that day, we had to sort of, like I say, step way outside our comfort zone. And again, the thing I remembered most when I was writing this book was just how young we were. Really young, to be having a fight that big.
And not only that, but with the Queen's man himself.
Powerful.
Because of your foul language that you were in the song. Right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe they asked us to change the lyric to one of the Newfoundland traditional songs and the suggested one was to go from, like, the song was Auntie Mary got a canary up the leg of her drawers, and they said, well, we don't think that's appropriate, so how about up the leg of her pantyhose? And I was like, that's better? That doesn't sound any better to me. That sounds dirtier. I'm like, what I said to the guy was, I said, man, you can't expect me to get on international television and sing Up the Leg of Her Pantyhose and go fly home to Newfoundland tomorrow. I won't get up Duckworth Street, I said, you'll have to put me in the witness protection program.
Tell us how things have changed, being a Newfoundlander in the rest of Canada when you started.
Well, I think Newfoundland is the place that it occupies in the country has kind of changed tremendously, like in even a couple of decades. I mean, it's for a million reasons. You know, I think it's partly because, you know, Newfoundland has been kind of really represented in the arts across the country, whether it's in music or television or journalism or whatever. And then, of course, you know, the financial, you know, boom that we had allowed us to sort of really sell ourselves as a tourist destination with beautiful tourism commercials and ads and all that kind of stuff, and a million reasons. And I think, like, it's just an amazing thing to me that we've become so, and I'm grateful, you know, so beloved in such a short amount of time. And I mean, I think ultimately that speaks so highly of Canada. I mean, one of the greatest things about Canada is that it supports its regions and its, you know, various ethnic groups and minorities.
One last question for you, Alan. This also came across as a real love story to the road trips and to Great Big Sea.
Sure.
Do you miss them? Do you miss those days? Do you miss those days in the band?
I'm kind of lucky that I still do it. Like, I still sort of travel in a similar fashion, like with my band, and I still tour as much as I ever did. But those, I mean, you only get one chance to be a young band on the road, right? And that you have to do it, you know, when you're young to be a young band. And we got to do it, and I have nothing but the best memories, and I'm so grateful to Sean and Bob and Daryl for, you know, ultimately having me along on the ride. It was fantastic.
Wow. Well, we've all loved the concerts over the years, Alan, and you are an amazing writer, hilarious and very poignant, so thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.
He has so many fans. Love that guy.
So much personality.
Yeah.
And a pretty good musician as well, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. So we're watching the Sens tonight. Can they win one at home?
They can win on the road. They've proven that, but that's the question tonight. Although they have played pretty well at home. Let's not be too hard on them, but yes, New Jersey's in town, and New Jersey's playing well. So we'll talk about that and tell you about how Brooke Henderson did in the rain in Taiwan.
All right, Dan's back after this.
Welcome back. The homestand continues tonight for the Ottawa Senators. Coming off a long road trip, the team ran out of gas against Vancouver on Tuesday, suffering their first regulation loss of the season. No excuses tonight, though, as Guy Boucher's club looks to get into the win column for the first time at the CTC. Only one lineup change for Ottawa tonight, and that will see 20-year-old rookie Logan Brown get his first start since opening night. Brown to center the fourth line between Nate Thompson and Alex Burrows. Mark Borowiecki sits out with an injury tonight. Eric Carlson will be back after playing 22.5 minutes in his season debut on Tuesday. Carlson, like the rest of his teammates, held off the score sheet by the Canucks. Craig Anderson will be back in nets against a New Jersey team that has been one of the early surprises of the season with 5 wins in its first 6 games.
We went to the road, we had a mission, we played well, and I think we've played well at home too. We just haven't been able to close it out or find a way to win. So, tonight's a new chance for us, a chance to get back at it and achieve our goal.
You're never going to start out the season the way that, you want to finish it. So I'm just going to need some time here to get back into the swing of things, just like everybody else, and just take it from there. It's day by day.
It's my opportunity to show them that I can stay. I've been learning a lot in practice and learning a lot being around the guys and watching a lot of video, and I'm excited to get back out there tonight and play another NHL game.
The New Jersey Devils coming into town sporting a perfect 3-0 road record. They've gotten solid goaltending from Corey Schneider and an abundance of offense from various players, including 18-year-old Nico Hischier, we see here. The league's first overall draft pick last June is from Switzerland, where he played his first professional games under one Guy Boucher 2 years ago.
Knew right away he'd come in and he'd be like all these top-end first pick overalls. He's got such a high IQ. The 3 games he played for me, he didn't make one single mistake in 3 games with men, and he was 16 years old. So I knew right away he'd come in and he'd be good. I think he's one of the most intelligent players I've seen, and he's very deceiving because you don't seem to see him sometimes, and all of a sudden, whoop, he's got 3 points. He's plus 2 in the game, and he just controls the game with his mind.
High praise for young Mr. Hischier. Devils have another pretty good rookie and defenseman, Will Butcher, who already has 9 assists in his first 6 NHL games. Sens rookie Logan Brown will play on that line with Thompson and Burrows. The homestand continues on Saturday with Toronto coming into town. Los Angeles and Philadelphia will be here next week. And let's finish up with some golf. A wet, windy, miserable day in Taiwan, playing at the Miramar Golf Course in Taipei. Round 1 of the LPGA Swinging Skirts Classic. Brooke Henderson struggled with the conditions on the front 9 with 3 bogeys, including this one on number 8. She made the turn at +3, but rebounded a bit on the back with a couple of birdies. Very nice approach shot here on 15 that set up a birdie chance. All said and done, she finished with a 2 over 74, and that currently has her tied for 34th place, 8 shots behind leader Un Hee Ji, who opened with a 6 under 66. And because of the time difference, they'll get set to tee off round 2 in a couple hours from now.
That tournament's called the Swinging Skirts Classic?
Swinging Skirts, yes, in Taiwan. Yep.
Interesting.
The Asian tour, they're there for 5 weeks.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Dan. Okay. Stay with us. Coming up, sharing the loss. Fans of Gord Downie remember him within hours of his death. We'll show you 2 gatherings in tribute to the tragically hit frontman when we come back. an outpouring of love and appreciation last night for Gord Downey, the front man for the Tragically Hip. It was hours within his death from brain cancer in the band's hometown, Kingston. Fellow musicians, politicians, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast were paying tribute to Downey's many gifts as a singer-songwriter, poet, and engaged citizen. Kingston is also where the band played its final show, and its residents remember a band that meant so much to so many and yet never let go of its roots. Meanwhile, in Ottawa last night, the Gord Downey tribute took place on the steps of Parliament Hill. A few dozen people came together to sing Tragically Hip songs as a local radio station broadcast the event live. Downey was no stranger to the capital. He played here a number of times over his decades-long career.
That we saw every time.
Yeah, every time.
That was a sad day. Pretty sad day.
Yeah. Yeah, still trying to absorb sort of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's emotional.
Ian, we're watching some pretty nice weather, though, coming up for the weekend.
Yes, this is a gem of a forecast. Plan on it, take it to the bank, get outside. Tomorrow, I'm going to say 17, 18 degrees, lots of sunshine. The weekend gets into the low 20s. So this time of year, you can't get too many more days of that. I know I've been saying that for a month, but it's got to end, and it will next week.
That's right. We've gotten a lot more than we maybe deserve. Great weather.
Well, I don't know.
The Sens hoping for a win tonight on home ice.
Yeah, Sens at home to New Jersey tonight. Toronto Raptors also open up their NBA season tonight at home to Chicago, and baseball, Chicago-LA tonight. So lots of choices.
Guy Boucher had high praise for that Hischier kid.
Hischier, yeah.
He controls the game with his mind, he said.
Yeah, he's a little over the top on everything, that guy.
I'm kidding. All righty. That is our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. You can join Ian and Omar tonight at 11. Have a good evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
I'm using my mind
to control the game.
Say goodbye.